Hello, and welcome to the Emmy Awards. I'm your host, Emmy Cardinale, and this is my podcast where I talk about what I've been watching or rewatching once a week. If this is the first episode of mine that you stumble upon and you enjoy it, please feel free to follow me wherever you listen to podcasts so you can get notified when I upload a new episode. Like and subscribe if you're listening to this on YouTube. This episode, as the title suggests, will be about Percy Jackson and the Olympian season 2 episodes 3 and 4. Next episode, I will be wrapping up my I Love LA coverage. I know I'm like weeks behind. It's been a lot. Then I'll just continue with my Percy Jackson coverage. I've had this podcast for a few years, and I've had a tradition where I do like a year in review as either my last episode or my first episode of the new year. This is going to be my last episode of the new year, and I already know what I want my first few episodes of the new year to be. So like I'm not going to keep that tradition, but maybe when I recap episode 5 of the Percy Jackson series, since hopefully that will just be episode 5. It won't be episodes 5 and 6. I didn't intend to do this thing where I'm doing 2 at a time. Hopefully when I do that, maybe for the second half of that episode, I can do like a little year in review. Apologies for all the delays and it has been a difficult couple of weeks for me in my personal life. My sister's dog, who I love so dearly, we had to say goodbye to him. And this is actually my first, maybe this sounds dramatic, but this is the first podcast episode I'm recording since the last one I recorded before. And it just took me forever to edit it because it was a really difficult week. So it's very sad. It's very sad. He was the best dog ever, like genuinely the best dog ever. His absence is so felt, and I love him so much. So like apologies if the podcast has been all over the place, but like it's been a rough few weeks. A silly introduction. Last episode I wore my Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the musical, like the Lightning Thief musical t-shirt. You couldn't really see it, so I don't know why, but I wanted to wear something Percy Jackson themed. I wasn't going to wear that again, but I do have this necklace. My friend got this for me for my birthday in 2021. It's like one of the, if you know, you know. I don't know if it really fits the vibe of my outfit, but I will be putting it on. So sorry if that looks kind of goofy, but okay. So Percy Jackson and the Olympians season 2, episode 3 was called "We Board the Princess and Andromeda." I have to say, it's so interesting to me watching the show because I read the books, right? And I read the books when I was younger. So I have all of these words and names that I pronounced a certain way. In my brain, it was Andromeda. They called it the Andromeda or something like that. Like it was different the way they pronounced it. This is the way I said it in my head. I also always said Thalia's name is Talia, and the musical didn't help. Again, I'm a huge fan of the Percy Jackson musical. They call her Talia in that. So when I'm listening to the musical, as I do frequently, genuinely, I'm always confused. I'm like Talia. Her name's Thalia. So apologies. But anyways, I thought it was the Andromeda. That's how I said it in my head. Apparently it's Andromeda or something like that. Maybe it would catch me pronouncing it incorrectly now. I also have this issue where like I watch the show, right? But when I'm taking my notes, I don't remember, I remember what happened and the notes help jog my memory. I couldn't recap the show off of, maybe some people can, but I need notes because I don't remember. I can't recap the show off of just memory. So I have to take notes. But then by the time I record, I'm like, I don't remember what I was thinking when I wrote this. It jogs my memory, but all that to say, I don't remember how they pronounced it in the show. I just remember they pronounced it in a way that isn't how I read it in my head. Anyways, so the episode opens with Clarice getting her prophecy, which I loved this sequence. Also, because I didn't comprehensively recap season 1, I feel like there are things that I want to mention of there were certain things that I imagined a certain way that weren't that way. And I kind of want to talk about those. And I feel like the Oracle is one. And I've had this feeling since season 1. The Oracle is not how I imagined her. I literally imagined her as just a husk of I didn't imagine her. Maybe that's just me. I just thought of her as like a skeleton. But anyways, the Oracle moves. Clarice slashes the Oracle with a sword. The Oracle's fine though. She's like a ghost. She's not a ghost. She's a spirit. Whatever. Anyway, the Oracle's mouth opens, green mist comes out, and then Clarice sees herself giving the prophecy. Now, I believe, I can't remember who Percy, but like Percy didn't see himself. It's like you see what you fear the most or something along those lines. So that was very interesting that she saw herself giving the prophecy. That was really, really interesting. And the prophecy reads, "You shall sail the iron ship with warriors of bone. You shall find what you seek and make it your own, but despair for your life entombed within stone and fail." And we see her like running out of the attic, and then the word fail is just echoing. We don't get the end of the prophecy until episode 4, which I'll circle back to the end of the prophecy there, but like I'm not going to spoil it just yet because I feel like you need to track. They told us it at a specific time for a reason, so I'm going to wait until that time comes to tell you the rest of the prophecy, because the word failed is just what echoes in her head, right? We see her then, they're gathered for like another announcement thing, meeting, whatever, like the one that they did in episode 3 when Clarice was given the quest after the chariot race. Tantalus is giving an announcement, and his voice is kind of like noise in the background. Like she's very much like fail is just echoing in her head. But then he says her name and she kind of snaps out of it. And he's like, you'll need to pick replacement companions. There's like a tension between her and Chris, who was her second pick, because basically in the last episode, if you watch my recap, you know, but she had to pick 2 people and she picked Annabeth and Chris Rodriguez. Annabeth left with Percy. Chris Rodriguez, I don't know why we don't see a conversation with them. Maybe I need to like read the interviews, or I know they've been doing a podcast after the episodes and stuff. Like maybe there's some kind of explanation for the whole why, because I understand the end of the prophecy. I understand why she went alone, but it's like, was there a conversation with her and Chris after Annabeth abandoned her, or like was he just kind of like, fuck, this quest is doomed, I'm not going on it? I don't know. That I find, because it's like Annabeth is gone, but it's like when you just pick one replacement, you still have Chris who you picked. I don't know. Anyways, maybe I'm overthinking. Then we cut to the Princess Andromeda, whatever however you pronounce it. Percy and Annabeth and Tyson climb on board, and I loved the music choice for this episode. And it looks like a normal cruise ship. Like they just feel like they've boarded a normal cruise ship. People are living their life on this cruise ship. They go into a room that's under maintenance, so it's vacant. And Percy gives Tyson a change of clothes from Hermes supplies, because Hermes gave them a bunch of supplies in the last episode. Tyson goes into the bathroom to change, and Percy begins to whisper to Annabeth, and Tyson's like, I can still hear you, because Percy's like, look, about this thing that I'm not supposed to know about. And obviously, I guess he doesn't want to bring it up in front of Tyson because he's not even supposed to know about it. So he can't, then Tyson can't know about it. But Tyson's like, I can still hear you, because Cyclops have really good hearing. So he's like, I can still hear you. So they just start talking in a regular volume. And then Percy, I loved Percy in this scene. He was like so wise. Like he was so in tune with why Annabeth was acting differently. Like he figured out the Chiron thing. Like it's because of the conversation with Chiron. He figured that out last episode. This episode, he's like, I think you shouldn't tell me. I trust there's a good reason to stop me from leaving camp or going on the quest or whatever. I trust Chiron, but mostly I trust you, is what he says. Like he understands that it's clearly some information that will change the way he acts. So instead of him knowing the information, maybe they can just have a code word. So if he's veering too far into a dangerous direction, they can use that word and like cut things out. The code word they decide on is boon, which was really. I'm a huge Percy fan. Okay, I cannot lie. I'm a huge fan of them. They bring me so much joy. Anyway, he's just like so smart. He's like, I understand that like it's probably something that will change the way I act. So like you don't have to tell me, but just you can rein in the way I'm acting if I'm veering into like he's just so smart. He's so smart. And I love this side of Percy because I feel like when we're introduced to Percy, is specifically in the books, he's like a kid who's like been kicked out of many schools. He like struggles a lot, you know. And I think there's just something very beautiful about the way the show is really diving into like Percy is genuinely a very smart kid, and he's good at this whole like he's really coming into his own and becoming, I feel like he's more in tune with himself and more confident in this world, which I think is a very interesting dynamic, especially because he feels so comfortable in the mortal world in a lot of ways that like Annabeth doesn't. But I feel like he's really coming into his own as like a demigod. Anyways, sorry, I'll get into it as I go. I'm thinking about something from episode 4 when I was saying that, but I really like this detail because I do think Percy is smarter than sometimes he gets credit for. And I think it's very clear that the show and the book are from different perspectives, because Percy, I feel like he's a lot more self-deprecating in the book, obviously, because he's telling the story from his perspective versus us just seeing it. And when you see it, it's like it hits different. Anyways, Tyson says it stinks. He's still in the bathroom changing, and Percy's like, he thinks it's about the code word. He's like, it's not your code word, and Tyson's like, no, it genuinely smells. Then Percy finishes his thought to Annabeth about the code word Boone, and she says, he says that if she says Boone, he'll back off. And she thinks that this will be a problem. She hates that she can't tell him, and soon he'll hate it. No matter what they try, like soon he will begin to hate the fact that he doesn't know this thing that Annabeth does know, and then he'll hate her. This made me so sad. It's like it's such a weight that they're carrying. Percy says, it's been a hard few days. We're stowaways on a cruise ship. Let's check out the arcade, the pool, the buffet. Like, let's just take a beat, okay? And then Tyson comes out of the bathroom in the change of clothes, and he says, it smells like monsters here. And Percy's like, monsters, plural. Back at Camp Half-Blood, Clarice is heading out on her quest alone. She did not choose any other companions. We didn't see the end of that scene with her choosing the companions. We pick up and she's leaving camp alone. Ares then comes and gives her a ship with dead soldiers to help her. And it's like the losing side of wars. The dead soldiers owe a debt to Ares. So she has a bunch of dead soldiers to help her. I like the way that this was changed from the book. In the book, it was specifically a Confederate ship. I'm glad that it was just like a group of just losers in general and not like a bunch of racists, you know? I'm sure some of them are racists, but like, I'm glad that it was just like a wide range of people. Anyways, back on the Princess Andromeda. Again, I love the music choice. They're playing Cake by the Ocean. I'm like, this is so, I feel like I'm on a cruise ship. They see the I'm just like Percy. I can't pronounce anything. The cannibal giants from the first episode. They see them, the ones that attacked camp, and Percy's like, we might need to leave in a hurry if there are monsters here, and he sends Tyson to go get the supply. Annabeth and Percy watched the giants go into a service elevator. Everybody's acting like it's completely normal, but these cannibals are just here. And Annabeth is confused as to why Hermes would send them on this cruise ship. If there are monsters here, there has to be more. She says they need to go grab Tyson and get as far away from this ship as possible. Then Allison Sims, who we met in the first episode, overhears Annabeth's voice, and she's like, Annabeth. She introduces herself. She's a retired camper, graduated, I think is the word she uses. Percy introduces himself, and once again, she knows who he is, because he's you know that sound that's like, introduce yourselves, bitch, you know who the fuck I am, or something like that on TikTok. If you know, you know. Low-key Percy Jackson in every single scene. They all know who he is. They all know who he is. Annabeth tells Allison there are monsters on the ship. She needs to get out of here. And Allison like fakes concern. Like, we know she's part of Luke's team, so like she doesn't care about the monsters, right? Anyways, so she fakes concern. She's like gonna go grab her friends. And as she's walking away, Percy hears Grover's voice from when he ran into Allison in that dream that we saw at the beginning of the season that Percy experienced because of their empathy link. He calls after her and like he's like, oh, right, like you handled Grover, because she was like, me and my crew, we're monster hunters, we'll handle them. Because as she's leaving, Annabeth is like, there may be more, like I don't know if you should go alone. And she's like, don't worry, me and my demigod team, we're monster hunters, we'll even the score. And then Percy hears Grover's voice and he's like, oh, Like, you handled Grover. Yeah, I know about that. He's like, she's leading us into a trap. She says Luke won't be happy when she brings him their heads, but he'll get over it. And then a fight sequence ensues. Eventually, Allison Sims gets knocked off overboard. They get back to their room and they dump Allison's stuff that they stole from her. Well, I mean, they didn't like steal it from her. They probably got it from the chair that she was on. Anyways, they dump that stuff onto the bed and they find a card with the I don't know how to pronounce anything. And they realize the sign of Kronos. And they realize that Luke isn't just on the ship, it's his ship, right? Because they see that, and then when you're in like a hotel room or a cruise ship and there's a TV that has like a landing page kind of thing that advertises the resort you're staying at or whatever, there's like a bunch of slideshows of like monsters and talking about how the mist will protect you from mortals and all of these things. So they clock that it's Luke's ship. They're like, that's why Hermes wanted us here. Back on Clarice's ship, the soldiers are not taking her seriously. She's trying, they're not taking her seriously. Also, very, very funny moment. One of the soldiers asks another one what battle he fell in, and he says he's Mitch from Blockbuster. He fell during the streaming wars. That was a funny joke to me. I liked that. That was tongue in cheek. It's like, this is on a streaming network. I thought that was funny. Sue me. Back on the Princess Andromeda, lots of boats this episode. Boats. But back on the Princess Andromeda, Tyson's asking who the Titans are again. And this is a good way to get exposition in the show and like backstory that didn't feel too much like, when you're watching a show and they're like, we're sisters, right? And it's like, who says that? Who most of the time to explain the context of the situation is like, we've been best friends forever. It's like, sometimes, okay, I understand that lands well in like a monologue or something, but it's like when that's your first introduction to somebody and they're like, we're sisters or something, like they're spelling it out for you and it's like annoying. I have to say, I think this kind of thing, getting the backstory on like who the Titans are and stuff like that, or like why Tali is a tree, I think these are they're seamlessly woven into the story where it's like, okay, we're getting this information and we're getting a reminder of like who the Titans are, which this did happen a lot in the books. Like if you're reading the books and you're reading book 2, like they explain who a bunch of people are, even if you already read book 1, because of the reading level, like the target audience, I think that it's done well in the like, we're getting the backstory without feeling like you've already told me this a million times, because it's like, you're not telling me, you're telling Tyson, who like maybe doesn't know. And it's like, it flows seamlessly. And it's also like not too repetitive, right? Okay. Anyway, Percy finds a map of the ship and asks Annabeth where Luke would be. He's like, we can find him and end the war tonight. He won't know that we're coming. And Annabeth's like, what do you mean take him down? Because Percy's like, we should take him down. And Percy's like, we need to strike while we can. And she says, boom, to stop him from plotting to murder Luke. He's like, I see your point. This could be a problem. And she's like, you mean about giving into revenge? And he's like, no, about this code word thing, because you can just use it at any time we're in an argument, even when you're wrong. Which was really funny, because that's kind of true. It's like, yes and no, because it's like, I understand. She is right in the situation that killing Luke wouldn't, but also he's right that like, she's not saying that because he's steering too dangerously into the like, you're becoming, maybe she did. Maybe I'm going to give Annabeth the benefit of the doubt. And like, she's like, I don't want Percy becoming evil or something. I don't know. Annabeth says that seeing Luke stab Thalia's tree was like seeing her brother stab her. No one's angrier at him than she is, but she doesn't want to see him dead. And Percy says that he'll say the same thing to Annabeth that he said to Hermes, that Luke can't be saved. Annabeth does believe that Luke can be saved. She has to. He's being manipulated. Luke has good reason to hate the gods, and Kronos is using that. And she wants to take him away from Kronos and the ship. And so Percy's like, okay, so the plan is to capture instead of kill. He says he can work with that as long as they steer clear of the word boon. And Annabeth says they need a new code word. And then Tyson says he likes the word boon. I love Tyson. Tyson is very quickly becoming one of my favorite characters. And not that I didn't Like I liked him in the books, but like he was never my favorite character. But there's something about Daniel's and I've forgotten his last name. I'm so sorry to call him Daniel, like we're old buds. We do share the same birthday. But there's something about his performance that has like really, really endeared me to Tyson, where like every episode I'm really looking forward to seeing Tyson. In the books, like I enjoyed him and I think he added a lot to the story and like provided a lot for like Percy's development, Annabeth's development, their dynamic. Like Tyson was a really, really impactful character who I like really, really enjoyed in the book. But like I'm like tuning in every episode to see Tyson. I love him. Like I love him in the show. I think there's also like all the actors are children, which like okay, but he's not. He's 29, and so he's in my age. He's in my age, and most of like the adults are like older than me. Like he is like the closest in age to me, so I'm like I feel like a connection. There's a distance between me and the younger cast that I like. I'm like, okay, they're children and like they're doing such a great job and like love them. They're doing such a great job. They're children. I'm like that's we could be peers. We're not. I'm not an actress, but like you know what I mean. Anyways, I love Tyson. Is the point of that mini tangent that I went on. Annabeth looks at the map and points out the Admiralty Suite. Admiralty Suite. That's where Luke would be. He's all about glory. He'd take the biggest room for himself. Annabeth was so funny to me because she's like he cares about glory, but then at the same time you're like he can be saved. It's like you knew from the beginning that he kind of had a little thirst for power. Tyson says that there are a lot of monsters on board. How are they going to get Luke off the ship without being seen? Percy has an idea. Then we see them exit the elevator with like the laundry basket thing, you know, big laundry baskets. Anyways, Tyson is grossed out by the smell. Percy's like, is it monsters? And he says something worse. And then we hear Kronos' voice and there's like an effect and we get this, it's Kronos that smells worse than the monsters. It's like the more evil you are, the worse you smell. Which, you know what, that's really interesting because if you remember in season 1 and the first book, because this is true in both the book and the show, Percy's like evil stepfather, Gabe, the reason that Sally was with him was because he smelled really bad and his smell would cover Percy smell to the monsters. And I think that's really interesting the way that smell indicates being evil, because even though he doesn't smell like a monster, he has a bad aura around him and that translates to smell as well. That was an interesting detail. Anyways, I just made that I just had that thought. Anyways, Annabeth asks what the plan is and Percy's like, we just kick down the door and say hi Luke or bye Luke. He's so unserious. Annabeth says Percy can't take him in a fight. The elevator dings and they go into a closet. Alice and Sims and some monsters. I think it's the giants as well. Like, I think it's the same giants. Maybe they're just always around. They exit the elevator. They like clearly rescued her from the ocean because she's like dripping wet. And there's like life rafts and everything. She goes into the suite. Then the trio exit the closet and Tyson eavesdrops and repeats the conversation in the way that Cyclops do, where he can repeat verbatim what they're saying. Luke knows Tyson is Percy's brother. Allison says he's right outside the door, and then she comes out of the suite and points her arrow at them. She's a daughter of Apollo. I don't know if I mentioned that. Sorry, really, really quick mini tangent. But when Taylor Swift released The Archer, I was like, oh my God, Taylor Swift, Loki. And also, I'm always Percy Jackson brained, right? So, and I loved the Trials of Apollo series, loved it. So I was very like, oh my God, if Taylor Swift had a godly parent, it would be Apollo. Okay, he like music, poetry, archery. She has a song called The Archer. And I tweeted that when like Lover came out, something like Taylor Swift would be the daughter of Apollo. And then she released a song called The Prophecy. And I was like, I'm a genius. So anyways, I love Apollo. I think if I had a godly parent, it would be Apollo. I feel like when I was younger, I was like, I feel like it has to be Athena, but I don't really resonate with Athena in the same way. I feel like I would be Apollo, especially reading the books, The Trials of Apollo. Like I resonated with him so much, like the voice that Rick Riordan gave, like his narration. I was like, I feel like I would be his child if I had to pick a cabin. I feel like that's the first one I really resonated with. Like growing up, I was like, I guess maybe Athena because I felt like I was like nerdy, but I didn't feel It didn't feel right. And then when I was like, I think it would be Apollo. Anyway, sorry for the unnecessary tangent. He's also a twin, and I'm a twin. So Allison comes out. She points an arrow at them, and she has a crew with her too. And the monsters come up behind the trio from the other direction. They're like surrounded now. But then Luke says that they're not going to fight. They're smarter than that, and he like calls his people off. Luke begins to show Percy and Annabeth around, and the giants take Tyson, but Luke says he'll be safe. Luke asks how they learned about the ship, and Percy's like, actually, you're dead. Percy is so funny because like a common theme with demigods is that their parents do not reach out to them. Like their parents, they're deadbeats. So when Percy just very casually, like to Clarice later, he's like, me and your dad. To Luke, he's like, me and your dad. He just has conversations with everybody. Like it's like a typical Tuesday. Well, all these kids are like begging for their parents to notice that. Although it's not like Poseidon seeing him all the time either. Maybe more than the anyways. That was just so unserious of him. Percy says that Hermes told him about the ship. Apparently, he still thinks there is hope for Luke, but Percy disagrees, and Luke says Hermes should lose his hope. His time is coming. Percy says if Hermes knows where Luke is, so will the rest of Olympus. He should surrender now, and maybe Zeus will spare him. And I'm like, Percy, maybe you shouldn't speak for Zeus, okay? I don't think he really likes, like, it's not you're talking for your dad, okay? Your dad has a soft spot for you. Maybe don't speak for Luke or for Zeus. But Luke says Zeus doesn't do mercy, not even for his own daughter. It mentions Thalia, the tree who's rotting right now because you poisoned her. Like, okay, yeah, he didn't save her life. You literally poisoned her. And he's like, shouldn't Poseidon be the one that I'm worried about? Maybe he's not attacking me because he's too busy fighting. Then he walks up to a coffin where Kronos, is slowly rebuilding his form. Kronos' scary voice echoes out of it. Luke says the Great Awakening has begun. The Titans are returning because Kronos is returning. Every half-blood that joins their cause makes him a little bit stronger, and soon all the little pieces of his essence will rise here in this creepy coffin. And Annabeth is like, so this is why you need the fleece to speed up his healing. And Luke says that they're forging a new body for him. Like, okay, Frankenstein. See how well that ended up for that guy. And Annabeth's like, so that, like, you poisoned Talia's tree for that? That's why you destroyed, like, the last that's left of your oldest friend to force the quest for the fleece. And Luke says that Annabeth didn't know her. He and Thalia were on the run for 2 years. Annabeth was with them for 2 months. She was just a kid. Thalia hated Zeus. If she knew about the great prophecy, if she knew she had the opportunity to take down Olympus, she would have taken it. She never would have given up her life. And hold me back, okay? I have to say, I'm a Luke hater. Okay? Because I think he has some points, but I think overwhelmingly he's misguided, and I do not like Luke. And I think this was sick and twisted. To say, especially having seen, because in episode 4, we get flashbacks to, like, the whole, like, of Annabeth, Thalia, and Luke when they were younger. And with the context of those flashbacks, Luke is sick and twisted. He's sick and twisted. And I'm like, that's like a horrendous thing to say. I'm sorry, that's a horrendous thing to say. And I'll get to it when I get to episode 4 because I don't want to like jump ahead chronologically in the recapping. But like, that's just so messed up to say. Because if you don't know, and I guess maybe this was talked about a little bit in season 1, but like Thalia sacrificed herself. But we get the backstory in episode 4 that the main reason she decided to go to camp was to protect Annabeth. So this is like really sick and twisted that he's like, if she knew that she could have taken down Olympus, she would have let you die in her place, is generally, in my opinion, what he was trying to say. He says that tree is her curse. She'd be glad to see it fall. Mind you, she is that tree. And Percy's like, wait, did he say great prophecy? And Luke's like, wait, you know to Annabeth, but you don't. See how the gods withhold stuff? And here's my thing. First of all, your children. Okay, Percy is smart enough earlier in this episode to be like, I think this will change the way I act so I understand why you don't want me to know. You don't need to know everything. Like, I think honesty and transparency obviously matters. And I think Percy should know some stuff, obviously. I do think they withhold a lot. But I also just think that, like, I don't think it's crazy to not want to tell a 12-year-old, like, hey, by the time first you find you've had a difficult life, your whole life, you haven't like fully belonged in the world that you're in. Then you find out that your dad's a god. Okay, you need to pace things with the news. I like, oh, Percy doesn't know yet. Maybe they don't feel like he's ready to know. Like maybe it's because I'm an adult. I understand when you're like a child, you're like, but why can't I know this? And the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't think that you should like withhold stuff and lie, but I feel like there's an age appropriate time to tell people things. And I don't think I personally wouldn't have wanted to know at 12 years old, hey, at 16, you're going to become a powerful weapon. Let him be a kid for a little bit longer. Luke says, this is how the gods divide us, by walling off the truth. And it's like, okay, but the Titans divide you by trying to destroy the world and having half of you die, minimum. So, like, yeah, the gods suck, but like you're trying to revive a greater evil. I said this in my last episode, but it's like, if 2 plus 2 is 4, then what the fuck is this? You know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? I also have to say, I've been rereading the series. Like, I'm on The Last Olympian right now, and this is really interesting. Like, this was something that I was like rewatching this episode and taking notes at the same time that I was reading some chapters about Luke's backstory. And like, spoiler for the Last Olympian, if like you haven't read the book and you're just watching the show. But in The Last Olympian, we get backstory into Luke's childhood, and there's a moment when Percy realizes, because he like gets this vision, somebody gives him this vision, and he's like transported and he witnesses all of it. He realizes that Hermes knew the whole time. Hermes knew about Luke's fate, that Luke would turn in this way. And Luke is like begging him to tell him, and he won't tell him. Like, he can't tell him what he's seeing, because he keeps talking about like before, and Luke's like, before what? Like, before what? And Hermes won't tell him about this fate of his. And so this was very interesting for me to be reading that chapter around the same time that I watched this episode, because I'm like, Luke really, like, the truth was walled off from him. So I understand why he feels this way. Like, the thing is, I understand. Look, if you don't know me, my name is Emmy, and I'm a huge fan of the show called Yellow Jackets. And Yellow Jackets is about teenage girls who are forced into a very, very difficult situation, and they do horrendous things because they're in this very difficult situation. And part of the reason I love the show is because I feel like it really captures what it means to be human in a lot of ways, and about how really like monstrous versions of ourselves are just like, it's very human to be evil, you know? It's not like some force. It's just a very human thing to cause harm and to be a very bad version of yourself in a really difficult situation. So like, all that to say, I have a lot of compassion for these teenage cannibals. So obviously I have compassion for Luke, and I understand where he's coming from. So when I say I'm a Luke hater, I'm not like genuinely a Luke hater. Obviously he's not like the big evil, but Luke just bothers me because it's like, I don't follow your logic though. And I'll get more into it, but it's just like I understand where he comes from. I understand how painful that must have been to like have somebody tell you basically like, I know that something bad's gonna happen, but I can't tell you what it is. Like, I'm not allowed to tell you. He also had a very like complicated relationship with his mother, who his mother like had the ability to see what was gonna happen to him as well, and that kind of drove her crazy. And what she was therefore not a very present and good mother to Luke. Hermes nowhere to be found. Then he gets to Camp Half-Blood, and stuff happens with Thalia before they get to Camp Half-Blood. Obviously, Thalia dies. His resentment for the gods grows deeper and deeper. He already had resentment from his dad, from the situation with his mother, all of that. Then the resentment grows. Then I imagine being in the Hermes cabin, which is the cabin where campers go until they're claimed. I imagine that just fuels the resentment, because that's the most overrun cabin. You're just constantly seeing these kids who are here for years and years and years, and they're never getting claimed, right? I understand why Luke's resentment for the gods grows deeper and deeper and deeper. I understand that. I don't understand wanting to be loyal to the Titans. That's where he loses me. It's like saying, okay, the millionaires are really, really selfish, and they don't care about the average American, right? So I'm going to team up with the billionaires. What are you talking about? Percy says he doesn't want to know about the great prophecy, because Luke's like, this is how the gods divide us. They wall off the truth. Annabeth knows, but you don't know, Percy. And then Luke asks if it's because he's smart or scared. And Percy says, why can't it be both? He said, ¿por qué no los dos? And then Luke says he always liked Percy. Percy deserves to know the truth. The tour of the ship continues. He takes them to like a training area. There are monsters there too, which Annabeth points out, and Luke says that they don't use the word monster here. He like brings up Tyson. He's like, look at Tyson. Because his mom's not human, he's an outcast. Here, he won't be treated like that. And he's working with the giants on something. And Luke says that here Tyson can use his talents and he'll be rewarded and accepted, not treated like a problem that needs to be solved. He says, we are fighting to create a new golden age where every spirit, every creature, every demigod is free. Now, not to be political, but if you think about it, Luke is kind of MAGA. Because he's talking about like a new future, everything will be better. But really, he's trying to regress. He's trying to make Olympus great. Like, why are you going back to the Titans? That's where you lose me, Luke. That's where you lose me. It's like, okay, yeah, the gods kind of suck. They don't hear you guys out. Why are you trying to raise the guy who literally ate his children? Like, your whole issue with the gods is that they're mean to their children, okay? So your solution is to get the guy who ate his children. You think he's any better of a parent than your parents are? Like, at this point, it's just about revenge. And I understand wanting revenge, but it's like revenge isn't a good motivator. That's not a valid motivator to me. It's like heal. Okay. Anyways, Percy asks where humans will fit into this golden age. And Annabeth says they'll likely all die. A war between the Titans and the gods will tear Earth apart. And Percy's like, what about Camp Half-Blood? They're not going to like bow to you. And Luke says that when the barrier falls, those who are smart will join them and they'll be spared. And then Luke says, if a child of the eldest three joins their ranks, that would be a powerful show of loyalty to Kronos. They wouldn't need recruits or the fleece. Percy could end the war tonight. Now, that's just not true. That's not true. Last I checked, Percy doesn't have the power to overthrow the gods. Kronos still needs a body. War hasn't come yet. What are you talking about? That he could end the war tonight? I understand that you're saying that because you know that Percy wants to end the war, but like he can't end the war. Annabeth asks if Luke the prophecy, and Luke says he speaks to me directly now. And then Annabeth's like, and you trust him not to twist the words of a prophecy in his favor. Luke says that the words are clear, and Annabeth says it's a prophecy. Words are never clear in a prophecy. And then Allison Sims says Annabeth is trying to trick him. I hate Allison Sims. Why are you beefing with children? Okay. Same with Luke. I'm like, all these people, they're like at least over 18. It's like you're beefing with like a 14-year-old. Grow up. That's embarrassing. Are you not embarrassed? Like, is that not embarrassing to you? Because that's embarrassing. You're an adult, okay? And I get that you're still a child, and obviously you had a difficult childhood. And I like have empathy for you. It's just like, why are you beefing with children? Allison says to Annabeth, you think you're so clever. And it's like, why are you beefing with a child, Allison? And then Luke tells Allison to stand down because she's trying to literally fight Annabeth. Then Tyson, meanwhile, is finishing something that he was working on with the giants. And the giants are like, ooh, what do you call it? And he says, a bomb. And I was cheering. I was like, I love Tyson. Why do I low-key have a crush on Tyson? He's so endearing. I love him. Anyways, it explodes, the bomb. Tyson, Annabeth, and Percy get away. Allison and her crew follow after them, but they manage to get off the Princess Andromeda on like a submarine boat type thing. I couldn't tell if it was a boat or a submarine. I'm not Percy Jackson. I can't just sense what things are in the ocean. I'm not good with the ocean. Wait, okay, mini tangent. I once saw this thing that was like, whoever you think of when you're by the ocean, like that, if you think of somebody when you're by the ocean, that's like a sign of love. And I'm like, I always think about Percy Jackson when I'm by an ocean. I think about Poseidon. I think about Percy Jackson. What does that say about me? I'm thinking about the god of the sea. Call me Sally Jackson. Luke looks overboard angrily at them, and Percy opens the thermos a little bit, the thermos of winds, and that helps them quickly get away. Back on Clarice's ship, she asks them, aren't you guys tired of losing? And she like rallies them by saying that this is their second chance to change how they're seen, to change their fate. And I was like, okay, Merida from Brave. She's like, if you had a chance to change your fate, would you? Like, that's what it was giving. She says that like if they succeed, they'll get to Eslium, which is like the higher, because basically in the underworld, if you're new to the underworld, But there's like different, Islam is like, you're a warrior, you're great. Then there are fields of punishment, you're evil, you're being punished. Then there's where most people end up, which is the fields of asphodel, I believe is how it's pronounced. And you just kind of wander for eternity. And this motivates them to actually start caring. The men, they kind of start taking her seriously. One of them then pulls up the map and he asks her about the coordinates that she gave earlier, because it's taking them to New Jersey. And then we get a flashback to Percy saying the coordinates were wrong. And she's like, I need to find Percy. And she says, Jackson. On the submarine boat thing, Percy thanks Tyson for getting them out of there. And Tyson says the giants weren't so bad. They were kind of funny. And then Percy's like, then why did you make the bomb? And Tyson says, because Percy and Annabeth were in trouble and a real hero stands up for others. I love him. I love him. Percy goes to check on Annabeth, who's like looking out into the ocean. She's probably thinking about Poseidon too. No, I'm kidding. And she says that she thinks that Luke was right about Thalia, about Annabeth not really knowing her. And if she was wrong about her, maybe she's wrong about everything. I'm going to cry. Sorry. Percy says that she's not wrong. Luke is the one who's wrong. He believes Cronus' lies. Annabeth says that she doesn't know the full prophecy, and Percy thought Chiron told her. And she's like, he gave me the gist. He wouldn't tell me the exact words. But she says if Luke's right about anything, he's right that Percy deserves to know the truth about his own fate. And then she says, and I wrote this down verbatim, the prophecy tells of a child of the eldest three, who upon reaching 16 years of age will become a powerful weapon. The hero of the prophecy will decide the fate of Olympus, a single choice that either saves the age of the gods or destroys it. Now, Emmy Cardinale has that shit memorized. A half-blood of the eldest god shall reach 16 against all odds and see the world in endless sleep. The hero's soul cursed blade shall reap. A single choice to end his days, Olympus to preserve a race. I have that down locked. I also had the other great prophecy memorized, but it's been a while since I reread The Heroes of Olympus. So that one I don't remember. But I'll memorize that one. Once I finish The Last Olympian, I'm starting the Heroes of Olympus series, like rereading it. And then I'm going to get to the Trials of Apollo, which I've read once, but I've never read. Like I'm going all the way in order. Anyway, sorry, nobody cares. But that one, I have it locked down. Anyway, she did a good job paraphrasing it. Like, she just doesn't have the endless sleep part in there. Some other, but the gist is pretty accurate. And then Percy's first response is, Chiron thinks that I might destroy Olympus. And he asks Annabeth what she thinks, and she doesn't answer. And then Percy says Annabeth was right. He wishes he didn't know. And the episode ends on like a wide shot of their submarine boat thing that I don't know what it's called. Episode 4 is called Clarice Blows Up Everything, which grammatically annoys me. And I know I'm overthinking. I would prefer Clarice blows everything up. Blows up everything bothers me. Blows everything up. But I understand that she blows up everything. She doesn't blow everything up. I understand the nuances of this. Something's wrong with me. Okay, Annabeth is in like a sewer type thing. It looked like a sewer to me. It's later we find out it's like a hideout, but it looked like a sewer. And there's like a little round door thing that she opens, and inside there's a box, and she's surprised it's still there. She finds a bracelet inside that she thought she lost, and we get a flashback, which I was referencing before. This episode is very flashback heavy in a way that I really enjoyed. That's not a negative, but we get a flashback. Luke and Annabeth, younger Annabeth, are in the same sewer. Annabeth is worried about Thalia. There's 3 of them, Cyclops. They're chasing after them. Luke opens the same round window gate. I don't know words for anything. And he says the stash is still there, and it's the same box that we saw Annabeth in the present looking at. Luke can tell that Annabeth is anxious, and he asks if Thalia has ever let them down, and Annabeth shakes her head no. Then Luke gets the supplies, and inside he finds a box, like a cereal box of like Monster's donut cereal. And inside the cereal box is this bracelet, which was a prize. He gives it to Annabeth, says it's magic, a protection charm. And Annabeth's like, oh, like Thalia's bracelet, which is Aegis, her shield. Luke says, yes, but this one's from Calogia, the goddess of stealth. You couldn't have said the goddess of cereal. Like, there has to be an actual goddess of stealth. Imagine Calogia is actually the goddess of stealth, and he said it like he was making it up. Now I'm like, what if there actually is a goddess of stealth and that's her name and I'm stupid and Kellogg's is named after her? But I don't think so. I don't think I'm that stupid. He says that if she hides while wearing it, the monsters won't find them. Then immediately after, Thalia comes in and says, they found us. She's British. They need to go into positions now. I have to say, okay, I said this in, if you watched my last recap, I originally recorded that recap. It was an hour and 40 minutes and the audio was unusable. And in my first unusable take, I said that in terms of casting, people had a lot of opinions on who should be what, yada, yada, yada. And I never cared about like what they look like, to be quite honest. The only thing that bothered me is it took me a moment to accept the fact that Percy Jackson was blonde, only because to me, the Jason Grace Percy Jackson rivalry, Percy's not the blonde one in that, but I'm like, Percy's the brunette, Jason's the blonde. But I have to say, the fact that Thalia, who is Jason's sister, if you don't know, sorry, I'm whatever. Jason is nobody to you, so hopefully that doesn't bother you. It's from the Heroes of Olympus. Anyways, that's not relevant. But Thalia is British, so at least there's that British American rivalry. And I don't actually, and I don't care that he's blonde anymore. But that was one thing that I was like, but Percy is so not blonde to me. But Walker does such a good job of being Percy that I've gotten past that silly little thing. But I do love the fact that Jason will be British, because I'm like, you know what? At least Percy's still repping American, and you know he kind of does give British. I mean, really, he gives Roman. I lost my place in my notes because I was thinking too much about Thalia being British. Then Grover comes in and Thalia like threatens him, and then he's like, Thalia, wait, and she's like, how do you know my name? And he explains that he's her protector. He's from Camp Half-Blood. He needs to take them there. And Luke says that they need to leave. They can't stay here. And Thalia looks at Annabeth. Clearly, she's at a loss for what's the best move. We cut back to the present day with Annabeth holding the bracelet. Tyson is above ground. They're like on an island staring at the submarine boat. He's staring at the submarine boat thing. Annabeth is getting supplies. Percy asks how the motor's looking, and Tyson says that he fixed it. And Percy mentions that Annabeth's getting supplies, so they should be ready to go soon. And Tyson points out that Annabeth said that Percy is dangerous, that he's going to hurt everybody, and Tyson doesn't like her talking about Percy that way. And I'm obsessed with Tyson. I'm obsessed with him. Percy explains that this time last year, he got a prophecy that made him afraid he'd lose the person who matters most to him. And Tyson is like, Sally. And he's like, yeah, but that isn't how things ended up happening. So prophecies don't always mean what you think they mean. He also says that he learned something even more important, and he goes to whisper it in Tyson's ear, and then he burps instead. And then Tyson burps and he like chases him off burping. It was like a nice lighthearted moment of like, they're kids, you know, they're brothers. It was nice. But as they're running away, the ship explodes. Annabeth hears from the sewer. It was Clarice's ship that they threw like a cannonball and they exploded the submarine ship thing. Annabeth gets back. Clarice, meanwhile, is now on the beach. Clarice demands the coordinates, and Annabeth asks who these men are. And he asks, and how did you find us? And she says that her dad led her in that direction. He can't help much, but he can tell her where her enemies are. And she's like, and don't tell me about rules to Annabeth before Annabeth can even say anything. Annabeth was expelled for leaving camp to try to steal Clarice's quest. Like, don't tell me about rules, okay? You literally broke a rule, and you did it to steal my quest. And then Annabeth says that they'll give her the coordinates if she takes them with her. Percy and Clarice both say what? They're like, what? Then Annabeth says that she knows all the legends of the Sea of Monsters. Tyson can fix any issue on the ship, and Percy's the son of the sea god. Like, together we'll all be good. Take us with you. Clarice says that her men already have that covered. She's like, he's good with the engine. He's been to the Sea of Monsters many times. We're good. I don't need you guys. So she asks again if they're going to give her the coordinates or if she has to take them by force. And Percy says by force, and only on the condition that it's one-on-one, just like how he beat her dad. Which reminds me of, I took a singular classics class in college, and it was Intro to Greek Mythology. My last couple of years in college were really fun because I was just taking things for fun. I completed all of my like core requirements like really early on. Anyways, so I had space in my schedule, so I took an Intro to Greek Mythology class. And I'll never forget my professor, like literally, I think it was in the first class, she mentioned Percy Jackson and she's like, I could never get on board with that book because it's so unrealistic. The gods would just kill all of those children. She's like, the second that one of them like threatened to battle, he would just die. Like the gods would just kill them, which was really funny. But that really cracked me up. Like I thought of her in this moment because Percy's just so casually like, yeah, I'd be your dad, the god of war. Percy and Clarice fight, and while they do, Annabeth like puts on her invisibility cap and kills the ghost soldiers who Clarice had specifically pointed out. Like he does the engine, he does like so smart. I love her. I'm obsessed with her. That snaps Clarice out of it. She's like, what the hell? And Annabeth's like, do you want to rethink our offer? Genius. Genius. And then Clarice is like, does anybody else know how to run the engine? But nobody else does. So they need Tyson, Percy, and Annabeth to join. She was smart. She was smart. She did what she needed to do. And I'm proud of her. I'm standing beside her. They were dead already. Who cares? They're also losers from a war. Like a lot of them probably suck. Not that every losing side of a war has been wrong, but a lot of them were. And also, like, spoiler for like the Heroes of Olympus, but in the Heroes of Olympus, like the doors of death are like open. So like they probably got out again. They didn't stay dead for that long. Anyways, does it really matter? No. Then they're on the ship. Clarice and Percy are arguing, and then Annabeth comes, and Percy's like, Clarice is saying we either have to fight Scylla or now I don't remember how to pronounce it. I'm literally just like Percy Jackson, Charberus. I wrote it down how they spelled it, and now I don't know how to pronounce it. Charberus. Charbis. Annabeth is like, Clarice is right. We have to do one or the other to get through the Sea of Monsters. And Percy's like, why can't we just go around? And Annabeth is like, they'll just move to wherever you are. You need to like, it's one of the 3 tests for the Sea of Monsters. You need to overcome them. Clarice wants to attack like the more difficult one, but Annabeth says that they should do Scylla. That's what the Heroes of the Legends did. And she can just send some of her men, like 6 of her men up on board, and the monster will eat them, and then we're good. And Percy says that's genius. They're dead anyway. And Clarice doesn't want to do that. She promised them as Liam. Annabeth is like, only the gods can decide that. And she was like, I was going to ask Ares. Annabeth says that this trial is like part of the journey, right? Because there are 3 trials in the Sea of Monsters. This trial specifically is about making hard choices. The choice on who to sacrifice to win a battle shouldn't be hard for a daughter of Ares. And Clarice says, it's not hard. It's not a problem. I just like my plan. And Annabeth is like, but if your plan doesn't work, then you lose the quest, the ship, and all your men anyway. Clarice walks away, says she'll let them know what she decides. And Percy tells Annabeth, when she's gone, Percy tells Annabeth that it's the right choice. Clarice will see that. And Annabeth asks how he knows. And he says, because it's yours. I love them. I love them. Annabeth goes to the deck of the ship and looks out into the ocean, and then down at her hand where she has the bracelet, we get another flashback. Grover showing Annabeth, Luke, and Thalia a satyr hideout. Annabeth asks about a carving in the rock, and Grover explains that it's the rune of Pan. I had to fight myself there to not make a yellow jacket. Wait, okay. If you're watching this on YouTube, Loki, this symbol in the tree, except not at all. It's a rune of Pan. He mentions nature and he lists a bunch, and Thalia thinks hippocampi sound fake. Grover says there's a lot more to their world than just monsters, and after all they've been through, they deserve to see that. Luke says, and to do that, we have to join Cult Half-Blood. Okay. Aren't you Loki a cult leader? Luke pisses me off. I'm sorry. He pisses me off. You know what Luke really needed? Luke needed to go to therapy. Luke needed to heal his inner child. He did not need to start a revolution, okay? I think revolutions are great, and I think pushing for change is great. And I think pushing for change from a place of like pain you've been through, I think all of that is great and it's important. And I think we need people who want, you know, the world to be different and to change for the better. I get that. I feel like you need to heal a little bit before you can do that, so you can know that you're doing it from a place of wanting change for people. like fighting for people, not fighting people, if that makes sense. Like, I just feel like Luke wants revenge. He says he wants change, and he says, like, and I understand the core. He thinks that he's trying to change things for the better, but it's like, at the end of the day, you're not, though. You're trying to make things worse. He needed to go to therapy first and then figure out a way to propel change in a healthy way. Like, I think Percy and Luke, their difference in childhoods is really clear in the way they push for change, because Percy like isn't seeking this revenge. His anger, he has very similar resentments of the gods that Luke does, but because of their different lived experiences, Percy very much in the series, in the book especially, because we haven't gone there in the show. Percy really pushes for change from like the inside. Like, he tries to like reason with the gods, and he's like not super like, yes, everything the gods do are right. Like, he's resistant to the gods in a way that is similar to Luke, but he does so from a like not a place of anger, of like wanting better for people, not wanting bad for people. Like, he wants better for demigods. He doesn't want bad things to happen to the gods. Luke wants bad things to happen to the gods. He doesn't want better for demigods. And the reason he wants bad things to happen to the gods is because he's mad at them on behalf of the demigods, but he's not looking for things to get better for the demigods. He's looking for things to get worse for the gods. And that's where he fails. And it's a great lesson. It's a great lesson, because I think if you're pushing for change from a place of anger and a place of revenge, then you're not going to do anything productive. He needs to heal. He needs to like validate that inner child, and then he can push for change from like a healthy place. Luke wants revenge. He doesn't want change. Anyway, still in the flashback, Thalia says that Luke and the camp have history, and Thalia doesn't want anything to do with her father's world. And Grover says at camp they'll have a chance to rest, to breathe, and Thalia says they've been doing fine on their own. And Grover explains that the older they get, the smarter they get, the more dangerous it'll become. Like, the more monsters they'll attract, because they'll become more powerful. 3 demigods together, one being a child of Zeus, it's like it's a lot. The monsters, it will just get worse and worse and worse. And he asks if that's really the life that she wants for herself, and then points to Annabeth and is like, or for her. Luke says they'll be leaving in the morning, just the 3 of them. Like, okay, why are you like the leader of the group? Okay, sorry, I think Thalia should be in charge. Why are you making this decision unilaterally? I'm so excited for more for in season 3. Sorry, I just started thinking about the Luke Thalia. Like, when, anyways, sorry. Thalia and Luke then step away, and Annabeth and Grover talk alone. And she says that they've been together for a little while. Thalia is strong, Luke is fast, but she is this. And she goes to show him her bracelet, and she realizes it's gone. We see in the present day, she's holding the bracelet, and she throws it into the ocean. But it's kind of brought up by the waves and the current, and it ends up on deck of the ship. Tyson and Percy then are also on deck, not in the same area. And Tyson says he had never been on a boat before Monday. Now he's been on 4. He wonders how close they are to the Sea of Monsters. And Percy says 130 nautical miles, 131 to be exact. And Tyson is like, how do you know that? And then Percy's like, well, we're going this speed at this direction at these degrees. And then he's like, wait, how do I know that? I didn't write down the exact numbers. I'm sorry if you really wanted to know. It was like 44 degrees. I don't know the rest. I'm so sorry. But Tyson's impressed, and Percy's like, how do I know that? And Tyson's like, because of Dad. I really love this moment. I love seeing Percy come into his own as a demigod. I loved it. Anyways, Tyson wonders why he can't do it. And Percy says he might. He doesn't know when it kicked in for him, but he knows where he is. Tyson says if they're going that fast, then he should check on the boilers. And there's like a really nice shot of like Percy, like it really is clearly dawning on him that he knows where he is. And in a really beautiful way. Like, I can't explain how much joy this brought me, where he was like, whoa, like I know how to do something. Like, he's starting to feel capable and at home and like good about himself in this world in a way that is so compelling to watch. And this shot specifically, when he's like, I know where I am. And then Tyson leaves and it's just Percy. He's staring out into the ocean and he says, thanks. I loved it. Tyson's on deck and Annabeth approaches Tyson and asks why he's not in the boiler tank. There's issues in the boiler tanks. Why isn't he there? And he says he was playing with Rainbow. They both came by and he's holding her bracelet. And she asks how he even got it. And he just goes to fix the boiler. Back to the flashback of Annabeth. She wakes up and She goes to explore the woods. She's not actually going to explore the woods. This is what I thought she was doing, but she's going to find the bracelet because she explains that later. But when I was watching this, I thought she was just going to explore the woods. No, she woke up and she wants to try to find the bracelet that she lost. Sorry. She hears what sounds like Luke and Thalia, but it ends up being a trio of Cyclops. She yells, and then we're back to the present day. She throws the bracelet into the ocean again, and in the distance, we see Rainbow the hippocampi. If you know, you know. I love hippocampi. I love sea creatures in this world. In the third book, there is an Ophiuchorus who Percy calls Betsy, and literally, I want a tattoo of Betsy so badly. I need to start saving money to get a tattoo of Betsy. I wanted this tattoo for like years and years and years, but I just like I haven't made it a priority to save money to get a tattoo of Betsy, but I want a tattoo of Betsy so bad. Literally my favorite. Like I love, love, love. The third book is probably my favorite of the original 5, which is kind of sad because Annabeth's not in it much, but I just like, there's something about the winter vibes. Betsy's there. I don't know. I really love the third book. I mean, books 4 and 5 are, anyways, I love book 3 though. 3 is also my favorite number. So I think I have like a bit of a, anyways, I love seeing the hippocampi because I love the sea creatures is the point of my little tangent. But I love the Ophiuchorus, and I will one day get a tattoo of Betsy. Mark my words. Okay. Not Betsy, Bessie. Bessie, not Betsy. I'm so sorry. Annabeth is then down in the cabin because it's like on deck and then there's like underneath. I don't know what the terms of boats are. Anyways, I imagine it. I think it's a cabin. They're under the. Anyways, Percy approaches her and she says they're going to lose. It's just a question of how badly. And Percy says that the plan is solid. Clarice is talking to her men right now, and Annabeth says it doesn't matter. The best plan can be undone by the smallest mistake. And she explains that the hideout that she took him to, the last time she was there, she lost something she thought was important, the bracelet. She went back for it, and that put them in danger. And then we get a flashback to Annabeth being trapped by the Cyclops, Thalia saving her. And Percy's like, she saved your life. I don't get it. And Annabeth says that it wasn't the first time she slowed them down and messed up, but it was the last. She said, nice night with Cyclops and your last. No, I'm kidding. I'm sorry. That's not. Also, like the thing is, you were a child. Okay. You were a child. You were a child. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Not like you were a child who like literally you were alone. You were alone. And then you found these people. You didn't know how to. You were a child. You were like 7. Please. You didn't do anything wrong. Okay. You didn't do anything wrong. But it was the last time she slowed them down because that dumb decision led to Thalia's fate, because we see the rest of the flashback. Thalia decides after this that they should go to camp. And because they went to camp, that's when Thalia died. So Annabeth blames herself, which is why last episode, I think it was so sick and twisted for Luke to say that if Thalia knew the great prophecy, she would have thought twice before sacrificing her life. Like he was literally saying that she would have thought twice before like making the decision to prioritize your safety, Annabeth. Like he's evil. That's sick and twisted to say to somebody, you know, that girl who like risked her life so you would not die as a child. Yeah, if she knew that she could destroy the world, she would have let you die. I hate him. Shauna Shipman is less evil. No, I'm sorry. In the rest of the flashback, we see Thalia say that Grover can tell Chiron that if anybody tries to hurt Annabeth, they'll have to answer to her. Annabeth in the present day explains to Percy that Thalia had a target on her back, just like Percy does. They're forbidden children. And she says, I want to believe that if I can just think 6 steps ahead, I can save you. But it's never going to be the big impossible choice I have to outthink. It's all the million little choices I can't see, the human choices, like doubling back for a cheap piece of plastic or sacrificing yourself for a kid you barely know. Like, Luke, you will pay for your crimes for saying that. Percy replies, she knew you better than that. And Annabeth replies, 2 months. And then Percy says one of the most gorgeous lines of all time. He says, it only took me 2 days to see how special you are. And then he says, maybe we can't outsmart fate. Maybe all we can do is the right thing and hope for the best. They're going to save Grover. That's the right thing. That's all they can do. And he says his track record for surviving impossible odds is pretty good. thanks to her. And then he like holds out his hand and is like, let's go do the impossible. And he helps Annabeth up. Clarice, meanwhile, is giving a speech to her men. She needs 6 of them to arm the deck. They all volunteer. And then one of them says, for victory in Esliam, we'll follow you anyway. Obviously, this is starting to weigh on her. She doesn't want to do this. She is alone and she hears them singing in the background this chant of like, we'll go to Esliam. Yeah. Percy approaches her and he's like beginning to make himself a sandwich and he asks if she wants some. It might be the last time they eat for a while. And then she asks how he did it, survive his quest. And he says he barely did, but he had his friends. And then Percy asks about the 2 companions that she picked because she's supposed to pick 2 companions. She says Ares gave her a crew and a ship. She didn't need anything else. She didn't need friends. And Percy says that his dad helped him too. Ares is probably a hard dad to have as a dad. And he's like, I know. I was body slammed by him. Again, I just thought of my classics professor. Anyways, Clarice says victory means everything to him. She has to make him proud. And then Percy says, a lot of the stuff we do because of our parents, whether we know it or not. But we're our own people too. I don't know if he said but he said we're our own people too. He's so wise. I love him. I love him. Clarice says she doesn't go home at the end of the summer. Camp is home. If she doesn't get the fleece, she can't go back. And Percy stops her and says that won't happen. She wouldn't have gotten the quest if she couldn't complete it. And then he asks about what the oracle said. And she's like, why do you want to know? And he's like, prophecies suck. Prophecies suck. It's like they're made to scare you. She says, it doesn't scare me. And he says, I didn't think it would. And this is when we get the end of prophecy, which ends with, because remember in episode 3, it was just echoing to fail, to fail, to fail, to fail. It's to fail without friends and fly home alone. So it was, you shall sail the iron ship with warriors of bone. You shall find what you seek and make it your own, but despair for your life entombed within stone and fail without friends to fly home alone. Percy's like, that's not that bad. Then one of Clarice's men comes to get her and she goes after him, but then doubles back to tell Percy that they're not friends. He takes a bite of his food and says, finally. And I really liked that. It's like a very minor detail, but it's like, they're human, you know, they're hungry. They're going through all these things and they still need to make time to eat. Like, damn. Clarice on deck tells her men that they've reached the Sea of Monsters. Tonight they sail into glory. Clarice, Annabeth, and Percy, then they're watching from underneath while they're going through the thing and the monster is picking all of the men. Clarice is very clearly torn up by watching Scylla take her men and she begins to change course. She says heroes fight monsters, they don't run from them. So it's like they're not going to take the easy route. They're going to take the difficult monster that you need to defeat, not the monster you just need to get through. Annabeth says small choices, because this is one of those like human choices that really shape a trip. And then Percy's like, this doesn't feel so small. They're really struggling now. And then Percy's like, maybe I can like control the tide, but he can change the current, he can control the wind, and then they're like the thermos. So then Annabeth is like, I'll do the wind, Percy will try to control the current. So she goes to get the thermos. He's on deck trying to control the tide. It was, the visuals here were stunning. He was trying to move the boat. It was so compelling to watch. He yells for Tyson to increase the power, and Tyson yells, yes, brother, from the boiler room. And we also can tell the pressure is increasing in the boiler room. Annabeth is struggling on board. One of the men falls off board. Then Annabeth drops the thermos and falls off, and she's like clinging to from the side of the boat. The wind begins to go crazy from the thermos. Clarice saves Annabeth. They try to reach the thermos. The thermos has gone down to the boiler room, and the wind is you know, the oxygen is not helping. Now there's a fire. They're in a whirlpool. It's crazy. The boat is like disintegrating and blowing up, and the episode ends on a shot of like Percy looking up at the boat, like disappearing in a whirlpool. And that's where that ends. And that's the end of my recaps. Things I did differently. I feel like I kind of talked about that throughout. I hope you enjoyed this recap. I had a good time doing it. It was a nice distraction, again, from the rough few weeks that I've had, but sorry for any delay. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please like and subscribe if you did. Follow me wherever you listen to podcasts, share with a friend, all that good stuff. Rate and review if you've listened to a few episodes. Comment down below if you're listening to this on YouTube, or I believe you can comment on Spotify as well. My social media is linked down below too, so you can reach out to me. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you have a great week. I hope you enjoyed the episode. I enjoyed doing it. So thank you so much. I Love LA will be my next episode, and then I'll do an episode about episode 5 of Percy Jackson, then episode 6, and I'll just do one episode going forward, hopefully. Bye.